We are very excited this year to have at this year's Expo dual keynote speakers. Rick and Karen Hargrove are both graduates of the University of Kansas. Rick graduated with a degree in computer science in 1982, and Karen with a degree in business and computer science in 1983. For many years after graduation, they worked for Microsoft and are currently living in Monterey, California. While at Microsoft, they were able to travel the world, which they say gave them a great perspective on where we are and where we're going. So it's with great pleasure that I would like to introduce Rick and Karen Hargrove.
I'm Karen, and we're here to talk to you about engineering for a green tomorrow and some of the work that we've been doing out in California.
Many of you may not remember the movie if you haven't seen it, called The Graduate. One of the key lines in that movie, Benjamin Braddock has just graduated from college, and a friend of his father is giving him advice on what to do for his life. He says, plastics. That's all he says, just plastics. That's the future. And interestingly enough, it actually turned out to be pretty true. Everything we do and deal with today in materials, your iPods, your phones, they all have composites or plastics as part of them, and there's almost nothing that you can't do with this material. It enabled tens of thousands of products that people hadn't even dreamed of, from medical products to computers to even structural engineering materials. In the 80s, when we were in school, a new emphasis developed, computers. And for us, it was almost the same thing. There was almost nothing that you couldn't automate, you couldn't control, anything that was electrical. If computers could get control wires to it, you could make it perform to your desires as frequently and as often and as fast as you wanted it to. In this current time period, many of you I know are aware, and we're all aware, the world is facing very serious environmental issues. The greenhouse gases are causing the planet to warm, tides are rising. This is going to displace hundreds of millions of people from the coasts. And it's a very hard thing to turn around. So there's a great emphasis now on trying to develop alternatives for energy. But it's going to take a lot of engineering work to do that. It has an enormous impact on the way the world will be 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and 100 years from now. A lot of the groundwork has started, but there's still an enormous amount of work to go forward with that. And so we have been aware of this for many years. And as we had the opportunity to start building our own house, our dream house, about 6 or 7 years ago when we started planning this, we wanted to make it a green house. And so our presentation today will be about what we wanted to try to do with our house, to try to automate it, to make it as earth-friendly as possible, and to try to bring the engineering sciences as they exist today into a lifestyle that is friendlier than what we typically do. A little bit of background before I get started. At Microsoft, I started out in the hardware group designing low-level software, we call those drivers, to talk to printers and input devices for the Macintosh and for Windows. That led to working on the Windows operating system in its early days, which most people would think of as being very unfriendly today. But at the time, there were some fairly significant breakthroughs. It was the first opportunity for us to really bring TV-like or stereo-like features to a PC. So we added animation, video, CD drives for CD discs and now DVDs. And those all had interesting technical problems, but they had significant benefits to users. And so there was a big push to try to make that happen. I worked on After that, some large systems for major corporations, trying to help them downsize mainframes into client-server architectures, and then object-oriented tools after that.
And then me, I took a little bit different path at Microsoft. I worked in research and development, and I used to like to think that I made things up. We were always creating new products and new technology. One of my favorite areas was symmetric multiprocessing. This was making great big computers with multiple processors, getting everything to synchronize. They were big, they were cool. But we also worked in my group on taking software and putting it into every little tiny device, anything embedded at all. That worked for cell phones, for handheld systems, so telephony was a big component, and often it was tying those cell phones back to these big computers. So with that, we also did work in things like security and encryption, because if you're storing a lot of data for some of Rick's big clients in those big computers, you need to have it encrypted and secure so it doesn't go away. And if it's being transmitted back and forth to handhelds and the big computers, you need it secure and encrypted to protect it there too. So that's some of the work that I did before then. I guess we say we retired. Is that what we say, honey? Kind of.
The thing about retirement, biggest thing they don't tell you, you never get a day off after you retire.
And you don't get paid either.
So the good news is you can't get laid off. When we started this house, this is, you start with an empty canvas, essentially, like every project. And, but we had years of training from college and from our technical development projects to bring to this particular project. And so it started with kind of requirements and goals, what we wanted to accomplish. We extended that to what resources we had available. We did a lot of research from the internet to find out what materials we could use to make the house friendlier, to make it more energy efficient. And we brought some project management skills to try to keep the project on schedule and on budget, some of which were successful and some of which were not.
7 years is a long time.
Yep. So to give you an idea of the scale of this, even though we worked on very large computer projects that took many years and ultimately ended up in hundreds of millions of users' hands, this was our construction site. And those, just if you can see them at the top, those are some very large earth movers that are stacked there at the end of the day after clearing part of the lot there. So,
You see those?
So this is a fairly large construction project. This is a model I built originally when I started in school, something that some of you may have gone through or may go through. I thought I wanted to be an architect when I started, which is a very good thing to be, but it's not where I ended up. But the house project allowed me to play a little bit with my architecture interests, and I started building this model of what our house is going to be. Down here on the left, this is called our gatehouse. This is where we store a generator when we lose power, and there's a number of large electrical service boxes in there, and our gardener's room. This is a guest house, and then this is the finished model. The gatehouse is still over here. This is the guest house, and then this is the main house here. So if you can imagine that cleared lot, this is the house, the model of the house before the project really got under construction.
Rick even has a mini lake that he used to create fountains. It's like out of this world.
So now this is one of the more colorful things about being an engineer or an architect. You actually get to build things that never existed before, and you get to express your own personal interests and ideas as part of these projects. Now in this case, this was for our own use, but most of the time it's going to be for the world's use and the world's improvement. It doesn't mean you can't use the skills for yourself. And in fact, a big part of being an engineer isn't so much the job that you do, it's more a frame of mind. You're going to school and you're going to learn a lot through school, but when you graduate and you actually start working, your education doesn't stop. And that's one of the really exciting things about being an engineer. It gives you the opportunity to continue to learn and continue to improve yourself day after day, week after week, so that as a person and as somebody contributing to the needs of the world in general, you continue to get stronger and stronger, whereas some careers, still noble careers, doctors, sometimes lawyers, they pretty much begin their practice at graduation and stop learning to a significant degree.
This is why we're not really retired. We never stop learning.
So now, this is a fairly interesting picture. This is the model that I took after I created it, and then this is the real house. So if we go back, this is the model, and then years later, finally, the house